When a bottom feeder in the SEC beats a blue blood in conference, it just means more. When that happens in the ACC, the conference gets ripped. Here's how much parity we can expect in 2025.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He is Kenton GIBBS, former NC State defensive lineman and co-host of Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex DONNO, host of Locked On Canes, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. On this loaded episode, really surprising ticketing stat for the North Carolina Tar Heels. I guess the Belichick effect is real. Kenton got an interesting message about the financial hurdles and implications of Miami possibly joining the Big Ten. Again, I think a lot is being made of a little here, but yeah, these reports earlier this week, Miami's allegedly begging to join the Big Ten. We'll talk more about that. But in terms of the season coming up in football, Kenton, I was going through the Sports Illustrated ACC football preview heading into the season, and, you know, they view the landscape as a lot of others do. Clemson clearly on top. You know, Miami probably behind them, and Louisville and SMU in the mix, but a lot of parity behind Clemson, a lot of unpredictability. And again, typically when there's unpredictability in ACC football, people tend to cling towards the negative, that if you don't have a clear 2, 3, 4 teams at the top, people tend to assume the worst. Could we be getting maybe good parity where, hey, there might be, you have one team that clearly stands out, but maybe 5 or 6 that can contend for a possible playoff spot this year?
I don't see why parity would ever be a bad thing, but more important than that, we talk about parity with the SEC and you say it just means more over there and all that good stuff. I want to let people in on a secret. That Vanderbilt team that beat Alabama last year was 3-5 in conference. 3-5. Well, do you know what the most funny thing about that is, Donno? Vanderbilt was not the worst team in the SEC to beat Alabama last year. Do you know who that distinction would belong to?
Oklahoma.
The Oklahoma Sooners, who were 2-6 in conference last year. So you take away the Bama victory, they have one conference win last year, and you think that's a good thing. We're arguing that that's good. I'm trying to figure this out, Donno. We're arguing that it's good that you are so bad, or that you are losing to teams that are so bad, they only got one other conference win. Teams that are so bad, NC State lost to ECU in the bowl game. That just tells you the ACC is terrible. Bama lost to a fellow American athletic conference team in Navy. I'm sorry, Oklahoma lost to Navy.
Yeah, Oklahoma.
Oklahoma lost to Navy. So what are we doing here? Bowls don't mean anything, and all these SEC guys, they opt out. But for the ACC, when they have a bad year in bowl games, we're just a terrible, it's the old meme of the handsome, fit, attractive guy saying, wow, that skirt looks lovely on you. And it says flirting. And then the heavier set guy with glasses says, wow, that skirt looks good on you. And harassment. That's what it is. The ACC and the SEC can do the exact same thing. The ACC and the Big Ten can do the exact same thing in the exact same way with the exact same results. And one of them will find a way to spin it and say, so what that our champion and top 2 teams from last year weren't very good this year? That's just parity, as opposed to in the ACC, if the top 2 teams from last year aren't good this year, well, look, they've got nothing. What type of conference are you with new champions every year? Yeah.
And I hope you agree. You can tell me if you disagree, but I feel like the ACC, just based on players in versus players out, coaches in versus coaches out, I think the ACC is going to be better this year. Now, the top team that everyone agrees is the top team, Clemson, who was your top team last year, I think they're better this year to the point where if and when they get back into the playoffs, I think the expectation should be they can win a playoff game or two and make a run to or close to the national championship game. Whereas last year, it's worth noting, Clemson went up against 3 SEC teams, Georgia in the opener, South Carolina final regular season game, Texas in the playoff. They lost all 3 against SEC teams, but I believe Clemson is better this year. A lot of their personnel that was young are going to be upperclassmen now. Their defensive line should be one of the best in the country. Receiver corps should be one of the best. I think they upgraded a defensive coordinator with Tom Allen. So I think Clemson is better to the point where they can legitimately compete for a championship this year where they couldn't last year. We believe Miami has a better roster top to bottom. Obviously, you replace Cam Ward with Carson Beck, which might go pretty well. It's not going to be Cam Ward, but I think Miami does have a better overall team, including fixing their defense. I think Louisville's going to be better this year, Kenton, because I think Miller Moss can be an upgrade over Tyler Shuck, and you've got 2 of the top young running backs in America who were true freshmen last year are going to be sophomores with a little mileage and experience now this year. We'll see about SMU. I guess SMU could be better, worse, or the same as last year. They're a little bit more unpredictable. The schedule is tougher, I think, for them. It's you look at like a team, like Syracuse. I mean, even if they are better, the schedule's a lot tougher this year. I don't know if they are better than last year, but Duke with Darian Mensah at quarterback, and they were already shockingly good last year with 9 wins. Like I feel like this conference has gotten better where you're going to have one team that can definitely compete for a deep playoff run and maybe a couple of more who can if things go right for them.
Here's my thing, Donno. I want to talk about the stat that you brought up in the beginning for just a second in terms of Clemson being 0-3 against, fellow Power 4 teams and all that good stuff. Statistics can be manipulated like that for almost every team, including the team that won the national championship last year. But I want to stick with the SEC for just a moment here. LSU played 4 ranked teams last year. You want to guess their record in those games, Donald?
1-3?
Correct. Exactly 1-3. You know who's included in those losses? USC.
Who?
USC. A team that we all look at and say, well, and you know who the starter was at USC when they beat LSU?
Miller Moss.
So, I say all this to say the statistics can be manipulated any way you cut it, slice it, however you want to dice it, however you want to, statistics can be used in a way at times that you are, I don't even want to use this word because it's so political. Actually, I'm not going to use that word, but you're cutting up a very specific part of the picture and you're presenting that narrative as if that cannot be done for every team. Like you just said, Donno, there are also positive narratives about a bunch of teams in the ACC. There are positive narratives about Georgia Tech winning recruiting battles in the state of Georgia against the Bulldogs. That is a thing that has happened. That is a thing that has happened under Brent Key. I'm not saying, don't give me the line and saying he's putting out better recruiting classes overall. I'm saying he's winning battles in their home state against a perennial playoff team. So there are positive things to say about so many teams in the ACC. And when there's a question about a team in the ACC, it's, that Kyron Drones kid, we've been waiting on him to get good for forever. When's he actually going to do it? But nobody wants to say, hey, Lane Kiffin has been said to be this wonderkind for forever. And where's the playoff results? Where's the conference championship appearance? Forget conference championship win. Where's the appearance? When did you show up to the party? When you were not in the Alabama assistant coaching capacity, when did you get an invite to the party? So I think that it is patently unfair, and it's one of those moments where the SEC, if any team wins it, it's SEC, even though it's the same 2 to 3 teams every time. And Lord forbid if the ACC has a similar, hey, we have one team at the top, and we know that Florida State has fallen mightily from where they were, but less than 8 years ago, Florida State was in these conversations like, hey, they're up there, and them and Clemson was the de facto ACC championship game, even though it was a Coastal and Atlantic at that time. We did not get our proper love and due respect because if there was a playoff back then, that Clemson and Florida State game, both teams would have made it every year. Both of them.
That's That's right.
And so we got to sit up here and watch teams who have not pitched a drop since integration happened tell us, oh, well, our conference is better than yours. Hey, I'll give you your top 3 teams. Sure. Other than them, what have y'all done? Y'all have had a one-off year here and there, which the ACC can also say. The ACC can also say we've sent teams to New Year's Six bowls who didn't necessarily belong. You were saying, what is that polar bear doing in Dallas? We've sent Pitt. We've sent Wake Forest. We've sent teams to New Year's Six bowls. You're like, how did they get here? What are they doing here? And the SEC is the same way. Every conference is that way, whether we want to admit it or not. There are 2 to 3 teams at the top that can actually do it, and everybody else is just riding those coattails saying, our conference is really good.
Yeah, no, amen to that. Well, earlier this week, Miami was linked in a report to possibly join the Big Ten down the road, but there's got to be a financial breaking point as to where it wouldn't be worth it to leave the ACC for the Big Ten under certain circumstances. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Guys, August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. Take your flyer on the MVP race. I'm somewhere between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson for my MVP. I'm going to have my pick ready by August 26th on FanDuel Futures Day. You can crown your champion in August, your pick to win the Super Bowl. Maybe it's the Hard Knocks hype, but I'm feeling a certain way about Buffalo heading into this season, or play your division winner dark horses. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets right now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. Thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen. For your next listen, check out our other shows. Kenton Gibbs and Grayson Boone host Locked On Wolfpack, talking all things NC State. I host Locked On Canes, talking all things Miami. All right, so let's talk about Miami for a second, Kenton, because we reacted earlier this week to this report about the Big Ten being linked to Miami, or Miami being linked to the Big Ten, and the host of Locked On Big Ten, Craig Sheeman, described Miami as begging to join the Big Ten. I'm pretty close to Miami. I don't hear any begging going on in that regard. But what are you received a message about the possible financials of a Miami to Big Ten. Do you mind sharing that with us, Ken?
Absolutely. I received a message that said, if Miami is lucky enough to join the Big Ten, the first decade will be at a half share. They have zero leverage. They're begging to get out of the ACC and that ridiculous contract that goes to 2036. The Big Ten would rather have North Carolina or Virginia. Anyway, none of that talk is real. It's just podcasters have to have content. Go Buckeyes. That was the talk there. And so, and here's the thing. Here's the thing, Donno. I didn't bring that here because I thought to myself, "Ooh, this is 1 p.m. This will be interesting to talk about." I actually brought that here because I've been seeing on a lot of message boards and whatnot about from different Big Ten teams. Well, if we are to bring in, what does the revenue split look like? Because we've seen conference realignment so much now. We've seen teams come in as full members. We've seen teams come in as 3/4 members, as half members, and as you're a member, but you don't get any revenue like SMU to the ACC. And more often than not, I keep seeing the prediction. So this isn't just this one gentleman in my DMs. It's not just them. There are multiple people out there who believe if Miami comes, they have to come at a half share. And I want to share some numbers with you on y'all works cited is a crack pipe. You understand? That's who told you that. That's who is giving you that information that this makes sense. You are suffering from a disease because I look at addiction as that, and I need you to get the help that you need so that we can make sense of this numerically. First off, Donno, the most aggressive splits that I have seen for the SEC to ACC schools is about 18 million. That's the biggest I've seen so far at the moment.
Yeah.
The smallest that I've seen, yes, the smallest that I've seen is 6 million. These are multiple reports done by multiple different places. Yahoo Sports says the SEC went from an average of 52.6 million, and the ACC ranges from 43.1 for partial to 46.4. I'm sorry, 43.1 to 46.4 per full-time member, because mind you, we have the success initiative and the ratings differences and all that. So that's a difference of $3 million so far.
Sure.
Now, here's where that comes in and is important. I'm going to use the $18 million number because we want to be aggressive. We want to pretend that we live in a world where that 18 is the truth, the fact, the way, and the light. Okay? That's what we'll pretend. Even if we go by SEC did 63 and the ACC did 45, even if we go by that, if Miami were to come in at a half share of 63, Donno, how much is that? What's half of 63?
31 and a half.
Exactly, 31 and a half. I'm glad you're good with quick math. I am too. I didn't want to put you on the spot if you did, but I figured you would be the guy because you know all that betting degeneracy. I know you good with numbers at this point. So
right about that.
31 and a half puts you at 10 million behind right now. Right now.
That's not good.
That means you're losing 10 million and a half for the first 5 years. If they were to leave tomorrow, they would have to pay to get out. And for the first 5 years, you're losing right away. But let's say when 2030 hits, the Big Ten believes our TV deal is going to be so big, it's going to be so massive that the half makes up for the difference of what you're losing in the ACC. So, Donno, I just told you, again, we're using the aggressive cut because there are multiple reports for different numbers. So I'm using the one that's most Big Ten centric, the one that's most favorable to the Big Ten, and giving them 18. If you are losing $10 million per year over the next 5, you would have to make up that 10 million per year with a half cut. So that would mean that each Big Ten team, in order to clear, and we're going to keep the ACC revenue payout at exactly what it is now. We're going to pretend that it does not change a dime, that we don't get a new TV deal. We keep the exact same TV deal. It just gets extended. Okay. At 45, in order to make up 10 million per year, each Big Ten team, and mind you, Miami only gets half. So Miami will be receiving 55 million to make up 10 million per year, right? What would every Big Ten team have to receive to make that number make sense, where Miami gets 55 and they're at half? How much would every other team have to get?
Well, no,
110 million. 110 million per team, Donno.
Oh, wow. Wow.
In order to make them getting a half share make Miami break even. That's just the math. If you want to check my math, feel free to check it. We just did it on there with you. You can pull out your whiteboard and do it yourself. Miami, if they took half right now, would be losing 10 million per year. In order to make up 10 million per year while still getting half, every team in the Big Ten would have to get 110 million per year. That's not happening. That's not real. That's not a real number. I'm sorry to tell y'all that. No TV station is coming to give you all, no major conglomerate is coming to give the Big Ten. If you multiply that by, 18 or 17, however many they got now, you multiply that yearly, each team getting 110 million, a 10-year deal would run you in the $15 billion range or something along those lines. Stop it, man. Y'all stop that nonsense.
Well, and the other thing I'll say to Mr. Go Buckeyes, okay, so if that's what the Big Ten's offer would be, here's Miami's leverage. Okay, we don't have to go there. Like, I mean, we may not want to be in the ACC, but we could stay in the ACC, literally make more revenue than your crappy offer, and have a better shot to get into the playoff because the ACC is not as hard as your league is. So that's your leverage. I mean, and if the offer from the Big Ten is that bad, maybe you get a better offer from the Big 12. If you really feel like you have to leave, and neither of us think that the Big 12 is a step up from the ACC, at least not at this point, unless we
Yeah.
really find out the ACC is literally about to implode. We're not at that point just yet. So that's silly. And also, I really think that this word people are throwing out there that Miami is begging to join. I don't know actually where that came from, except for the one YouTube video that chose to use that word. Because again, if you're begging to do something that's going to get you less revenue and a more difficult time getting into the college football playoff, I highly doubt you're begging to get in there under those circumstances. If you can get in under circumstances where you're making more revenue than you're making right now in the ACC, absolutely. But they're not begging in to go in at a 50% rate. It's not happening.
Exactly. And the biggest thing I want to emphasize is, again, this is not about this one very passionate person who, said, hey, Miami has to come in at a reduced rate, because it's not just this one person. That is an idea that is catching fire amongst fans. People are spreading this idea. Miami's going to take a half. They're going to take a half deal for the next decade, which, again, the numbers do not work out. The deal right now for the Big Ten, the deal per year or the total revenue per year is about $928 million. Okay. $928 million. Donno, the math works out in a way that in order for Miami to make money, again, just break dead even over the next 10 years while taking a half cut, that deal would have to literally more than double. It needs to be $18.7 billion over the lifetime of the next 10 years. That's what it needs to be for Miami to take a half cut and just hold steady. So you've taken a half cut and you hold steady over the next 10 years. We need to live in reality. If you were to say Miami takes a 75% cut, I could potentially see that. And I don't even think that would be great for Miami, because like you said, Donno, there's leverage there to say, well, wait, if we take a 75% cut here, our numbers, folks, are going to crunch it, and we are very likely to make a profit potentially based on projections. We're very likely to make a profit there. But we have a guarantee if we stay without any growth projection at all that this is the money that we're going to make. So you take a risk, you bet on yourself there, you hope that it works out well. It could potentially not, because you're paying up front to get out. So that's the first risk.
It's true.
And then you're going from there. I look at this and I very simply say, at the end of the day, fan, short for fanatic, I get it. I understand that. We are all a little bit fanatical about our schools and our universities and our teams and our conferences. Donno and I run this show, so good and damn well we're fanatical about the ACC a little bit. We get that. But we're never going to lie to you and delude you. Donno and I never lied and deluded and said, there is no trouble in Ba Sing Se. We are not having Florida State and Clemson sue. There is no lawsuit. What are you all talking about? We were honest and upfront about what we thought would happen with the lawsuit. When the results of the lawsuit came out, we gave our honest interpretation of that. And even as we see conference realignment come down the pipeline to potentially take some of our biggest teams, we'll be honest with you about that as well. But the reality is, if you think that Miami is taking a half bid somewhere else, you are not living in reality. You are deluding yourself. Now, if Wake Forest was offered that opportunity, the Demon Deacs might jump. They might jump and say, hey, this is worth it for us. We don't benefit from the viewer initiative, and the success initiative by and large will not benefit us in the same way that it would a Miami, a Florida State, a Clemson. You might see that with Boston College. And it wouldn't even make financial sense for those universities, but at least from a cachet standpoint, you could potentially see it.
By the way, you got to be careful with these hypotheticals, because with the way people get their college football news these days, someone's going to aggregate what you just said and say, Big Ten wants Wake Forest. We're going to start seeing those headlines now, because Kenton GIBBS had the audacity to bring it up. Coming up next, home games, and we're talking football. Home football games in Chapel Hill will be the hottest ticket in the ACC this coming season. Really? You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on Locked On ACC. Oh, my friends, we're certainly not done with Wayfair. As summer winds down, there's something nice about getting back into a routine you love. And Wayfair makes it easy to set yourself up for the season ahead. From bedding and linens to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair is your one-stop shop to refresh your home. Guys, when you order with Wayfair, the delivery is fast and free, even for something big. So convenient for me and for my wife to find exactly what we needed all in one place and at a price that fit our budget. It's the perfect time to get your home ready, whether it's organizing, upgrading our workspaces, or making weeknight dinners easier. Get organized, refreshed, and back to routine for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen. So how about this, Kenton? North Carolina Tar Heels in the secondary ticketing market, according to sportscasting.com, North Carolina boasts the highest average get-in ticket price for home games in the ACC at $118.17. That's more than double the ACC average, which is $58.85. So you're telling me getting into a home game for the Tar Heels this year is going to cost you more than going to Clemson home games, going to cost you more than Miami, Louisville, SMU, NC State home games? I mean, is it just the novel, like people just want to be there, see what happens with Bill Belichick? Is that what this is about, the novelty behind it?
Well, there's a couple things there, Donno, and this is why I like this is today going to be named a numbers episode because we're running through numbers the entire episode. More than the average of the ACC, right? We're talking the average. So yes, there are teams like a Clemson, like a Miami. That's a ticket. You're not getting into that Notre Dame game for $50. I know you're not. I highly suspect that you're at least going to be looking at $150 plus if you want to get into that game, right? But you talk about the average. There are some places in the ACC. I'm not going to name any names because people say I like to pick on schools. So I don't want to pick on nobody. There are certain teams. Their get-in price is $2. If you got $5, you can get into a game. That brings the average down a lot. But now I do want to acknowledge this. This is what the Bill Belichick effect is. Central North Carolina is somewhat of a sleeping giant in terms of college football. You have a bunch of very passionate fans in that area that have not had a team that has been seriously successful to root for. I remember, I want to say UNC played Texas A&M in a New Year's Six Bowl not too long ago when Sam Howell was the quarterback, and they haven't been back since. And nobody, last time you get to a North Carolina team in one of those types of games, it's been a while. If you talk about the most memorable moment from any school in North Carolina in the last 25 years, it's from App State and Armani Edwards. The kick is blocked. The kick is blocked in the big house, right? So you're looking at a situation where there's a passionate fan base that wants to show up and show out. There's an area that has been left, for lack of a better word, underserved in terms of a very highly successful and consistent football team. Both, not just consistent. I know NC State fans are going to come after me and say, Dave Doran's been consistent. Has he been highly successful? Has he had has he had 8 10-win seasons? It's been consistency between 6 and 9 games. That's good.
Right.
That's not good enough to raise fans into that stadium or raise fans into stadiums in a way that drives the resale tickets up to this price. And Bill Belichick, he's a guy. He's the Don. You were there at ACC Media Day. Well, actually, you weren't there for the day.
I wasn't there that day. Yeah.
But I told you, and I sent you video of what it looked like. It looked like the Pope was coming through. When he was going to the bathroom, this line forms, and every other coach walked up first, his players directly behind him, like soldiers in line, and then the coach goes to the podium to speak. North Carolina was the only school that had a difference. The players walked in, Bill Belichick went to some separate back room, and he comes in from the other way, a door that not a single head coach used the entire time at ACC Media Days except him. So Bill Belichick is extremely different, and he's warranting different results for UNC ticket sales.
Well, I mean, you could see it. And by the way, you were asking about Miami, Notre Dame. I'm looking at, I think the least expensive ticket right now for that is $205. That's where they're starting at. So that's above North Carolina's season average, but the averages are high to see Belichick and company huge thank you. And by the way, I hope everyone had their calculators out for this episode. It's the most numbers we've ever done. You had your spreadsheets out. He had Kenton's right. I can do a certain amount of math because of point spreads, but still, my knowledge was stretched today.
Don't worry. I do the numbers for you. You know, the key to doing really big numbers is you got to shrink them. You got to round up to, like, if you got, you know, what we did for the ACC, the first thing I said was the average was 46.5 or 44.6. Well, I rounded up to 45. That way, you take away all the zeros. You just got 45. And then instead of 52.3 million, okay, we'll round down to 52. And then you do the math from there and work that thing out.
We'll discuss chemistry on tomorrow's episode. Thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen. Follow Kenton at TGIF_Kenton on X and at Locked On Wolfpack. Follow me at Locked On Canes and on Locked On Canes and at Alex Donno on X. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow on another episode of Locked On ACC. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.